Hey everyone! Before we start, I wanted to let you know that this episode gets a little heavier than our usual videos. There will be a content warning before the section in question in case you're unable to engage with that, but we wanted to warn you ahead of time as well.
A Saturday afternoon is an endless opportunity. You're never more free than you are on a Saturday afternoon with no plans, and Julia and I found ourselves in possession of this beautiful thing one fine Saturday last May, and we decided to take ourselves down to the land of her ancestors, Peoria, Illinois, to catch some high A baseball.
The day was a little chilly, but thankfully the rain held off as we saw the Peoria Chiefs go up against our old friends, the Beloit Skycarp. After a short 15-minute walk from our hotel, we arrived at Dozer Park with plenty of time to look around. As we walked through the front gates, we got our first indication that this experience might be, well, bad. Dozer Park, for reasons unfathomable to me, has a clear bag policy. For the record, every single clear bag policy is ridiculous and unnecessary, but to insist on it in a place like Peoria is beyond the pale. I typically have only run into this draconian bullshit at indoor arenas. Even most major league parks don't insist on making their purse-carrying fans buy a new bag, transfer all their items into it, and then also make their personal items visible to anyone who might be looking their way. Thankfully, the policy is very laxly enforced because even gate staff know it's ridiculous, and I was able to bring in my purse with relatively little incident after showing my inhaler and claiming it was a medical bag.
Taking a deep breath, after finally making it past the gates, the ballpark was about as expected. We walked over to the team store to check things out and get a fridge magnet, which unfortunately they didn't have. But we did at least get a little enamel pin that we made into one.
The store was very large, but not very full. There was a large selection of items for sale, but lots of space in the aisles, and there was a large empty section by the door that seemed to be serving as a kind of entryway.
Echoing hallways aside, there was some fun stuff to look at, including the sections for the pork tenderloins and the orange barrels, some of the team's alternate looks.
The Chiefs are an affiliate of the St. Louis Cardinals, so we expected to see some Cardinals items around, but we were shocked to see there was just as much representation for the Chicago Cubs. On paper, it makes sense. The Chiefs have been affiliated with the Cubs in the past, but their most recent partnership ended in 2012. Peoria is about equidistant from both cities, so perhaps they want all their fans to feel represented. And we did see people at the game wearing merch for both teams, but even so, I thought it was kind of weird. Next, as is tradition, we headed to the concession stand with the intention to go hot dog mode. I was excited to find out that they served a foot-long corn dog, Jacob was excited they had a brat, and the concessions worker was excited that anyone was interested in trying the dog shoe, so everyone was happy.
We sauced up at the most cursed mustard dispenser of all time and then headed to our seats to eat and watch the game. We sat in the second row between the visiting dugout and home plate. Usually we don't sit so close to home, and it was fun to get a close-up view of the batters warming up. With that said, though, the netting was way harder to see through than it should have been.
From what I've been able to read, the netting was replaced in 2025, but it seems thick and kind of baggy. I kept losing the ball through it and ultimately felt like I was going cross-eyed for 2 hours straight.
But before we get too carried away reviewing all the weirdness of Dozer Park, let's stop and ask, who are the Peoria Chiefs? Peoria is a small city of about 100,000 people in central Illinois. The name means,
"He comes carrying a pack on his back,"
and is a term invented by French colonist woodsmen for the Peoria tribe, which were part of the Illinois Confederation, a group of about a dozen tribes who were some of the original inhabitants of the area. The Illinois people were both agriculturalists and foragers living along the Illinois River. The tribes of the Illinois were weakened by wars with the Sioux, Dakota, and Iroquois through the mid-17th century, and French traders moved into the region around 1690. As European settler colonists continued to push westward through the 1700s, the Illinois were driven off their land. In 1832, the remaining Illinois tribes were forced to formally cede their land and moved first to Kansas, then Indian Territory in present-day Oklahoma, where the modern Peoria tribe is based today.
Peoria is perhaps the oldest European settlement in Illinois. Sources differ, but what is clear is that French traders were visiting the region as early as the 1670s. It received its current name when the county of Peoria was organized in 1825.
Peoria has been an important port on the Illinois River throughout its history, shipping agricultural products from the surrounding areas. Throughout the past century, the city's most important industry has been manufacturing, particularly of agricultural and construction equipment. Caterpillar, the world's largest manufacturer of construction equipment, opened their first plant in Peoria in 1910 and were headquartered there until 2017. Caterpillar remains the second largest employer in the city today. The topic of Caterpillar is a complicated one, and one we'll circle back to later. But today, Peoria is a shrinking Rust Belt city much like any other.
Despite the city being small and rural, it is part of the trend of urban gentrification, as we saw firsthand during our visit. For a city of about 100,000, there is a robust dining and arts scene, and the low cost of living persuaded hundreds of remote and white-collar workers to move to the city during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Chiefs are the latest team to play in Peoria, but professional baseball has been played in the city since at least 1878. Early baseball teams took on several names, including the Reds, Canaries, Blackbirds, Distillers, and Tractors, the last of which was the first connection between baseball and Caterpillar.
In 1946, Peoria joined the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League with a team called the Peoria Red Wings. The team boasted several standout players, including Thelma Eisen, known as the Ty Cobb of women's baseball. During her season with the Red Wings, she hit .256 and stole 128 bases.
In men's baseball, the first baseball team called the Peoria Chiefs was created in 1953, but was never a great team and folded in 1957. The current Peoria Chiefs were founded in 1983 as the Peoria Suns, an affiliate of the then California Angels. The team carried the Suns' name for only one season before becoming the Chiefs in 1984.
The team's first home was Minen Field, now called Shea Stadium and owned by Bradley University, where they played from 1968 to 2001, to a hometown audience that once included a young my dad.
The Chiefs played their first game at their current home, O'Brien Field, on May 24, 2002. The stadium was renamed to Dozer Park in 2013 when Caterpillar entered a 10-year naming rights contract with the team.
The Chiefs have a decent record as a high A team, winning division titles in 1985, 1986, and 2018, and went on to win their only league title in 2002. So, as you can probably tell from our intro, things here are kind of bad, but in the name of making this a real review, let's talk about our final scores. Hot dogs were the brightest part of the day. Across all the dogs we ate, all the meat tasted very fresh. My corn dog was pretty good, had an excellent ratio of meatness to sweetness.
I had a brat, which was good.
We also had to sample their specialty offering, the dog shoe. This was a hot dog topped with fries, nacho cheese on top of the fries.
When we first went to the concession stand, Julia asked what it was, and the person at the register had to ask someone else what was in it, which was probably a little concerning, but the other worker was very animated when telling us about it, so we threw caution to the wind and ordered one.
While all the elements of it were good, it is a confusing food. Maybe it's a local thing that we're just unfamiliar with, but it seemed like a lunch a 12-year-old would make while their parents were at work. Also, major product flaw, Jacob sucked all the cheese off the top when he took the first bite. Overall, 7 out of 10. The only other food item I had was a churro. I was prepared to drag them for serving me what I thought was an undercooked churro before I reached the middle of the churro and I realized there was caramel in the center making it soft. It's not a stick of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, however, I don't think it's cooked all the way.
Oh.
Like, it's fine, it's just like soft, you know?
Fair.
But wish there was a little more crunch. Urgent update, it's not Sog City. It just has caramel inside and I didn't know. So, I'm sorry to the people working food service at the, where are we, Dozer Park? It's fine. After grading on the caramel curve, I thought it was really good, but nothing special.
There's one more thing we need to discuss. The beer. Multiple concession stands had Sam Adams Summer Ale on tap, and Summer Ale is a seasonal beer that comes out in late spring, early summer. I was excited to have my first one of the year, and someone was very possibly lying about what beer they were serving. Because while the sign said Summer Ale, it tasted suspiciously like their late winter beer, Cold Snap. We don't want to make any accusations here, it could have just been a labeling error or a misunderstanding, but what we will say is that Summer Ale is definitely not supposed to taste like that. Overall, for other concessions, we're going to give them a 4 out of 10. Uniforms and merch. We'd say on the whole the uniforms were, in fact, on the players. Perfectly serviceable, nothing interesting about them. As far as merch, it was pretty standard fare. They have a handful of good alternate looks, including their Copa look, the pork tenderloins, and the orange barrels. The Cubs-Cardinals dichotomy was a little confusing, but we think there's a good chance it makes more sense if you're a local. 6 out of 10.
Gimmicks and promotions. Again, nothing innovative or exciting here, but a serviceable program of entertainment. There was no cap shuffle or race, but every single inning featured some little distraction, to the point where it was kinda too much. There was a ring toss, a dilly bar eating contest, a snow cone eating contest, a game of dizzy bat, a game of don't drop the ball, during which I was shocked that they pitted an adult-sized person against a child-sized person to try and hold as many beach balls as possible.
The hype team also threw t-shirts and softy balls to the crowd, but generally just seemed unenthused. Like, I hate to be the person who says employees should be having a good time at their job, but I think when your job is to hype up the crowd, that is part of the job? 4 out of 10.
Facilities. Normal quality, a bit run down, but the park was built in 2001, and as long as they're clean, I'm not gonna complain. Overall, 7 out of 10.
Quality of baseball. Once again, really bad. I know it's high A ball, so we're not expecting a lot, but it was bad. There were 5 recorded errors the night that we were in town, but there should have been at least 7. Also, around the 8th inning, the Skycarp were on a bullpen pitcher, and while he was on the mound, a kid in the crowd yelled, "Oh my god, he's so bad at throwing." Overall, 2 out of 10.
Stands culture. I want to preface this section by saying that Peoria actually seems like a fine place. And while we have some critical things to say here, we have nothing against the town personally. The people who live there seem to love it, and my dad's family has lived in Peoria since they came to this country. On our way out of town, we were actually able to take time to visit some cemeteries where multiple generations of grandparents are buried, and it was really nice to be able to do that. That being said,
we were there on a Friday night, and by my estimation, there were only about 300 people at the game. This isn't to say teams need to sell out every game, especially in the minors, but it's not a good sign to have low attendance like this on a weekend night with decent weather. The vibe in the crowd swung between hollow and hateful. Everyone was checked out except when the opportunity came to hassle a player. Most disappointingly, the hassling slid into racist territory more than once, particularly against the Latino players. I personally hope those Latino players don't know enough English to be insulted, because the English speakers in the crowd were certainly putting their knowledge of it to waste.
But thankfully, it seems that the bad vibes in Peoria were safely confined to Dozer Park. After the game, we headed down the street and had a great time at a bar with live music, good beer, and great people. Shout out to Kenny's West Side and the People Brothers Band. Check them out if you're in town. But stand culture is getting a 2 out of 10.
Labor union ads. 2 ads, both for the IBEW local in the area. And given that IBEW is in fact powering a brighter future, that'll be good enough for a bonus point.
Proximity to lodging. The park is right near downtown, and the large theater and convention center are right nearby, so there is plenty of lodging to be found. We walked about half a mile from our hotel to the park along nice wide sidewalks, so 4 out of 5 bonus points.
Atmosphere. Normally this is where we'd talk about if a park is more for families or for adults, but frankly, this park didn't really feel like it was for anyone. It seemed like they were the most trying to appeal to company outings at the ballpark and adults just hanging out, but offerings were so limited that I think most people would probably just go to a bar or a restaurant instead for that kind of thing. On the other side of the spectrum, there wasn't a lot specifically for kids. Kids were having a good time, but kids will always kind of make their own fun. Also, the energy across the board was so low that I could see a fair amount of them getting bored after about 4 innings. Overall, 3 out of 10.
Brand. The Chiefs are independent in a way that's a little confusing. As we mentioned, they're roughly equidistant from St. Louis and Chicago, and it seems like some fans want them to be a Cubs club again, but that hasn't been the reality for over a decade. Like we've been saying throughout the video, the team seems to be splitting the difference and are kind of ending up in no man's land. As for the team brand itself,
the Chiefs used Native American imagery until 2005. But when the team became a Cubs affiliate for the second time, they redefined their image to represent a fire chief. They changed their mascot and logo to a Firehouse Dalmatian named Homer, who still represents the team today. When asked about the change in 2020, minority owner and former team president Rocky Vonachin said,
"The team was proactive in understanding and respecting Indian culture. We just felt back then it was time for a change."
The Chiefs were ahead of the curve on the push to move away from indigenous caricatures, and we think they deserve a genuine commendation for making that choice, especially in a state where it's still so common and at a time when popular culture believed it to be a non-issue. While it's laudable they made a serious effort to respect indigenous peoples with this move, that's difficult to square with the club's long-running relationship with Caterpillar. We originally filmed and wrote this video about a year ago when we visited the park. Part of what put this video on hold is being unsure how to approach this section. Content warning for all the things currently on screen, and if this video is going to be a little bit too much for you, that's totally fine. Thank you for watching this far, and I'll put a timestamp on screen if you want to get to our final scores. Caterpillar has been a pillar of Peoria for about 100 years, so the partnership with the team is understandable. But the company moved their headquarters out of Peoria in 2017, and their original naming contract for the stadium expired in 2023. However, over the past 70 years, Caterpillar has also faced grave criticism for its close collaboration with Israel, and that states various colonial efforts to ethnically cleanse Palestine, particularly its sale of D9 armored bulldozers to the IDF.
In March of 2003, a young American peace activist named Rachel Corrie was in Gaza, protesting the demolition of Palestinian homes in Rafah. A Caterpillar D9 bulldozer turned towards the home of the Nasrallah family, where the 23-year-old Corrie was staying. Corrie, in a high-vis orange vest, stood on a mound of dirt, determined to stop the bulldozer, believing the driver wouldn't dare hurt an American. On March 16, 2003, Rachel Corrie was crushed to death, murdered by an American weapon in the hands of an American allied state. In response to her death, Caterpillar hired an intelligence firm to spy on her grieving family as they prepared to take legal action against Caterpillar for their part in Rachel's death and complicity with war crimes in Palestine. In 2004, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights sent a letter to Caterpillar warning that the supply of equipment to Israel
might involve complicity or acceptance on the part of your company to actual and potential violations of human rights, including the right to food,
as Israel was using the bulldozers to destroy Palestinian orchards and farms. Caterpillar has maintained that they cannot be held responsible for how their products are used. In 2008, during Operation Cast Lead, now also referred to as the First Gaza War, the IDF destroyed 3,000 homes and damaged 20,000 more using Caterpillar D9 bulldozers. According to a report by Amnesty International, there is no evidence that any of the targeted homes were used for any combat purpose. In 2023, as the IDF began their genocidal campaign in Gaza, they again used bulldozers to destroy homes, farmland, tree cover, cemeteries, refugee tents, and to crush Palestinians to death.
However, in October 2023, Caterpillar announced they would be donating $1 million to humanitarian efforts in Palestine. And, as of 2025, Caterpillar has been removed from the list of boycott, divestment, and sanctions pressure targets. We reached out to the BDS movement to ask why this change was made, but did not hear back. As such, we respect their judgment, and we will refrain from making any broad statements on corporate divestment here. But even if the company has improved, that does not overnight make their ubiquitous branding at this stadium any less uncomfortable. Returning to our day at the ballpark, we're going to give the Chiefs an overall score of
45 out of 100.
Unfortunately, this is the first team we have to recommend you don't visit. While Peoria doesn't seem like a bad place, the lackluster stadium atmosphere, over-the-line heckling, bad baseball, and controversial stadium sponsor make this an all-around bad experience.
If you are watching this video on the day it's released, it has been 23 years since Rachel Corrie was murdered in Palestine. She and her family still have not received justice, but we want to do what we can in honor of her life and the lives of tens of thousands of others murdered by the State of Israel. In the description, we will place a link to the Rachel Corrie Foundation and the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, two charities that provide support to Palestinians. If you have the money to spare, please join us in making a donation and doing what you can to end Israel's ongoing genocide. Thank you for watching. Free Palestine.